I gave your wedding fund to your sister. She deserves a royal wedding. Dad said it like he was calling the weather. Calm, flat, no buildup. I sat there, 29 years old, fork halfway to my mouth, staring across the table in suburban Indiana like I'd missed a line in the script. Lila froze beside me, didn't say a word, but I saw her jaw lock. She was filing this moment like a receipt she'd use later. Tessa, of course, grinned. She didn't even look sorry, just smug. Like this was the punchline she'd been waiting to drop. Mom, sitting with her hands folded like a hymn was about to start, gave me this soft little nod, like what Dad said was completely reasonable. Dad kept going, pointing his fork at me. You're doing fine, Nolan. You've always been fine. Fine. That word again. The word they used when they needed me to disappear without complaining. I work supply at St. Joseph's Medical. Decent hours, solid benefits. Nothing shiny, but I've never missed rent. Lila and I had a backyard wedding planned for the fall. 70 guests, pulled pork, folding chairs. We weren't asking for a circus. That fund was supposed to be for both of us. They said it since I was 16. Equal money, equal support. I never touched it. Never even brought it up. Just trusted it was sitting there like a promise. Tessa's fiancé, Tyler, sells cars and puts money in whatever crypto coin's hot that week. They booked a resort in Scottsdale. 220 guests, gold flakes in the drinks. You gave her my fund, I said. Not yelling, not begging, just saying it so I'd remember I had. Dad waved it off. She needs help, Nolan. You don't. Be a good brother. That's the kind of sentence that sounds like honor, but lands like a brick to the ribs. Lila pushed her chair back. Not loud, just enough. Calm face, sharp eyes. She pulled out her phone like it was a scalpel. Want me to explain what I do for a living? Dad blinked at her like he missed a step. Tessa's smile twitched. Mom reached for her water glass, knuckles tight. I didn't move, just sat there listening to my heartbeat pounding in my ears, knowing this wasn't some brand new betrayal, just a louder version of the old pattern. Lila looked Dad in the eye. You took money promised to Nolan. You can fix it or I will. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. The room went quiet, half the air gone. Dad's jaw moved like he wanted to argue, but Lila was already standing. She took my hand. Firm grip. No questions. Just motion. We walked out together. Back in that house, it started early. I was 2 years older than Tessa, but from the beginning, it felt like she was the sun and I was a porch light nobody bothered to turn on. Tessa had moods, big ones, tears, tantrums, phases. She was sensitive, Mom would say, like it was something sacred. Dad called me steady, like that was supposed to be enough. I got praised for not needing anything. She got praised for needing everything. Birthdays spelled it out clear. Tessa had themes, mermaids, princesses, even a full setup with a rented pony one year. I got a sheet cake from the grocery store and a, "Hey champ, blow out the candles." The message wasn't hard to read. Don't expect much, and you won't be disappointed. When schedules clashed, like they always did, it was never a question who won. My ball games got skipped. Her recitals got flowers. Supporting the arts, Dad would say with that same half smile like he'd just done something noble. So, I adapted. I packed my own lunch, figured out how to fix my chain when my bike broke, taught myself how to iron a dress shirt the night before 8th grade picture day. If I needed help, I weighed the odds, debate, delay, or just handle it myself. I usually handled it. That became the story. I was the guy neighbors asked for help moving furniture, the kid who raked leaves without being told. At school, I was polite, quiet, useful. People like that kind of person. They just don't remember them. After high school, I went to night classes while working days at Jansen's Hardware. I stocked shelves, cut keys, smiled for tips I didn't get. When I finished my certificate in logistics, I invited my parents. They said it was the same night as Tessa's boyfriend's band gig. We'll hear all about it after, Mom promised. I walked across that stage alone. Tessa changed majors twice in 3 semesters and got a handmade banner and 3 dozen cupcakes. I watched it happen and told myself I didn't need the same. That's the trap. Start believing silence is maturity. Dad used to check on me during her meltdowns. You okay, bud? Every time I nodded, because being okay was my whole role. Keep the peace, stay useful, don't compete. By the time I was 27, I landed the supply job at St. Joseph's. It wasn't flashy, but it made sense. Invoices, boxes, barcodes, everything had a place. When I clocked out at the end of a shift, I knew I'd done something that counted. It was around then the wedding fund crossed my mind again. Not because I needed it, but because someone once swore it'd be there, for me. And if nothing else, I wanted to believe a promise didn't expire just because you didn't scream for it. Of course, I never asked about it. That would have felt like begging. I just assumed it had my name on it, same as hers. Turned out it did. Crossed out, rewritten, and handed to someone who never stopped asking. Fine doesn't mean strong, it means forgotten. I met Lila on a Tuesday night in a church basement with buzzing lights and folding chairs that pinched your legs if you sat wrong. The flyer said financial basics for adults, and I figured, why not? I wasn't broke, but I wasn't ahead either. I wanted to get better. She walked in 10 minutes late, jeans and a gray hoodie, hair pulled back, no makeup. Sat 2 seats down, pulled out a notebook, and started writing like she already knew the answers, but wanted to hear how other people said them. When the speaker asked if anyone had experience with budgeting apps, she answered like she'd actually tried a few, instead of just Googling them. Afterward, I held the door for her on the way out, and we ended up grabbing sandwiches from a spot across the street. She asked me what I did, and when I said I worked inventory for the hospital, she didn't nod and move on. She actually asked follow-ups. I asked about her job, and she gave me this half smile and said, I run a couple studios and a little brand on the side. I figured she meant yoga or Pilates, maybe some online merch. Nothing she said came off like bragging. She drove an old Subaru with coffee cups in the back seat and wore sneakers that had clearly seen pavement. At the deli, she paid half the bill without hesitation, then looked me dead in the eye and said, next time, you pick the spot. No flirty laugh, just a real sentence, like we'd already agreed there'd be a next time. We didn't rush. Weekly dinners turned into weekend hikes. She came with me to the hospital's fall cookout and brought homemade cider. She met my coworkers, asked about their families, and remembered their kids' names. When a nurse in my department lost her dog, Lila mailed her a care package with a candle and dog treats labeled "in memory." I didn't even know she'd noticed. For a long while, I thought she was just running a couple of fitness studios and keeping it low-key. No big deal. She never mentioned numbers, no boss babe attitude, no talk about profits or branding. She wasn't hiding it, she just wasn't performing it. Then one rainy Saturday, we were sorting receipts at her place for some tax thing, and I found an envelope mixed in with everything else. Thick one. I opened it without thinking, and right there on the first page was a company name I recognized from national ads. The rest of the paperwork had big words and bigger numbers. She saw me staring. You okay? She asked, like I'd just seen a mouse. I held the page and said, Why didn't you say anything? She looked at me steady. Because I wanted to see who you were when you thought I had nothing to offer. And I liked what I saw. I told her I wouldn't treat her different. She nodded. Good, because money's loud and I'm tired of shouting. Things shifted after that, but not in the way most people think. We didn't upgrade, we didn't post about it. We kept our Sunday dinners, our secondhand furniture, our long walks where the loudest thing was a squirrel crashing through a bush. She showed up for me. I showed up for her. Nobody kept score. And yeah, I knew I got lucky, but not because of the money, because with her, I finally had quiet that didn't feel like punishment. The proposal was quiet, just how I wanted it. We were by the river, late April, standing on a wooden footbridge after an early dinner. I pulled out a small ring I'd saved up for. Nothing fancy, just real. And Lila looked at me like I'd handed her the moon. She cried, kissed me hard, and said, I'll wear it forever, even if it turns my finger green. That night, I called my parents. I thought they'd be happy. First thing Mom said was, How big's the stone? No congratulations, no, how'd you do it? Just carrot talk, like she was pricing it. Dad jumped in with, What's Lila's background again? She have prospects? I told him she ran her own business, kept it vague on purpose. Didn't feel like handing them ammunition when I knew they were already loading the gun. Lila and I sat down that weekend and built our wedding plan on purpose. Barn venue in Vermont, mid-October. Local band that knew the old stuff without trying to be ironic. No flash, no nonsense, pie instead of cake. No matching napkins. We told my folks we'd cover most of it, but I'd count on the fun they'd promised both their kids since forever. I wasn't asking for a blank check, just the number they'd promised. Dad said, Of course, we're fair. Hearing that word stung worse than I thought it would. Tessa got engaged not long after. Her fiancé Tyler proposed at a vineyard with a photographer hiding behind the vines. Within a week, they were talking destination wedding, Scottsdale, peak season, monogrammed everything. She posted a mood board, had a dress code by color palette, they made a hashtag. Felt more like launching a brand than starting a marriage. Mom jumped right on board, started sending me links to ideas for our wedding. Ice sculptures, fireworks, a string quartet that plays pop music. One email had a photo of a horse-drawn carriage with silk draping. I thanked her and booked a barbecue truck instead. Sunday dinners got harder. Tessa took over every conversation, with talk about flower installs, drone footage, and menu tastings. I brought up chair rentals and tent size and got polite nods. There's always a hierarchy in families, even when no one says it out loud. Lila brought dessert every time. Homemade pies, cookies from scratch. Tried to connect with Mom about baking. Mom smiled and said, Tessa's centerpiece inspiration came from a bakery in France. Lila nodded and let it slide. I watched it happen and chewed slower. 2 weeks before the fun bomb dropped, Dad leaned back after dinner and said, "Don't worry about the money, son. We got you." He said it once to me, then again when Lila was there, and once more over the phone. I believed it half a time. That's the trick with old promises. The kid inside you wants them to be real so bad. You squint and pretend you don't see the cracks. Lila didn't pressure. Just looked at me one night and asked, "You sure you trust them?" I said, "I want to." She nodded. Then we planned like adults and let the truth be what it is. I slept like a rock that night, honestly. Thought maybe, just maybe, we were all playing fair now. I should have known better. Lila didn't flinch. She kept her expression level, calm, like she was about to explain a billing error to someone who thought they were immune to being corrected. She held up her phone and said, "Hank, do you prefer emails or calls when fixing mistakes?" Dad let out this forced little chuckle and leaned back in his chair like he thought the whole thing was still a misunderstanding. "You work at a gym, right?" Lila tapped her screen once and turned it to him. It was an article from a major business outlet, her photo right at the top. Same gray hoodie, same no-nonsense stare. The headline said she'd sold her wellness company to a national brand for an undisclosed 8-figure sum. The room changed. Searist. Mom's fork hit her plate with a clatter. Tessa leaned in like she needed to see the words for herself. Tyler's grin slipped off his face like it had been glued on wrong. Lila didn't raise her voice. "I was going to cover our wedding," she said, eyes on my father. "But this isn't about money. It's about the fact that you broke a promise to your son and tried to frame it like generosity." Dad's face lost a shade of color. His eyes darted from her to me, like maybe I'd set him up. I didn't say a word. I'd spent 30 years trying to be understandable. I was done translating. "You'll put Nolan's fund back," Lila said. 30 days. Sell the jet ski, cancel the DJ, take out a loan, I don't care how. You fix it. Mom softened her voice, tried to reach for that middle ground where guilt dresses up like empathy. "Honey, this is family. We all give a little sometimes." Lila didn't blink. "Exactly. And when family breaks their word, they fix it. Or they apologize, and they deal with the consequence." Tessa finally spoke, voice tight. "I didn't know it was his." Mom shot her a warning look. Dad cut her off with a flat, "Sit down." Tyler stayed silent, staring at the napkin in his lap like it had instructions on how to get out alive. I stood, slow and steady. "I've been fine my whole life, so you didn't have to look too close," I said. "I was enough. You just chose not to see it. No shouting, no drama. Just a fact I needed to say out loud. Something to carry with me when I walked out of that house and left the weight behind." Lila reached for my hand and stood too. "We're leaving," she said. "You have 30 days. If the fund's not returned by then, we go public." She meant receipts, screenshots, group chat truth bombs. And if that didn't land, small claims court would. It wasn't a threat. It was a step-by-step guide. We walked out to the porch. The old maple in the yard creaked with the wind. Inside, voices started rising. Dad snapping, Mom shushing, a door slamming. The air outside was cold and still. For once, I didn't feel like shrinking. In the car, Lila didn't gloat or give me a speech. She just sat there, holding my hand, thumb brushing over mine once. Then she asked, How are you? I looked at her, really looked at her, and I said, for the first time in a long, long time, yeah. The first week, there was nothing. No texts, no calls, just silence like a dropped curtain. The kind of silence that pretends to be mature, but really just means guilt with bad manners. I showed up to work like usual. Stocked shelves, scanned pallets, signed off deliveries, nodded to the night crew. It helped. Routine is its own kind of medicine. Doesn't heal the wound, but keeps you from picking at it. Day 8, Tessa sent a text. It said, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I read it once. Believed the first half, not the second. I didn't reply. Didn't even hit the heart or the thumbs up. Just left it there like a voicemail on an old landline. That afternoon, Mom sent pictures to the family group thread, me and Tessa in matching pajamas, maybe 5 and 7 years old. Her caption said, we love you both, always have. I muted the thread, not out of anger, out of clarity. If you have to dig up baby photos to prove your love, you're already admitting it's not in the present. Day 11, Dad called while I was finishing inventory in the West Wing. I let it go to voicemail, but he called again. This time, I answered. His first words were, you embarrassed us. I didn't even sit down. I said, 19 days. He paused like he thought I was bluffing. Then he hung up. Lila's attorney, cool lady, sharp voice, sent over a 2-paragraph letter. No legal muscle flexing, just facts and a date. I didn't even read it twice. It said what needed saying. Day 17, the wire hit my account. No subject line, no apology. Just a cold row of numbers that matched the promised fund exactly. Nothing more, nothing less. I screenshotted it and sent it to Lila with a 1-line message. It's done. Then I deleted the email and cleared the banking alert. I didn't dance, didn't punch the air or crack a beer. Just sat there for a second, breathing deeper than I had in days. Later that night, Dad texted. It said, we're square now. I turned off my phone, looked at Lila, and said, tacos? She smiled, grabbed her keys, and we didn't talk about the money once over dinner. Back home, after we kicked off our shoes and the dog next door started its usual 10-minute bark spree, my phone lit up again. Tessa, calling this time, not texting. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail sobbing. Something about Tyler's spending, the wedding bills, how everything was spiraling. I didn't listen past the first 10 seconds. I wasn't a bank. I wasn't a brother on standby. Not anymore. I dropped the phone on the nightstand, pulled the blanket over my chest, and felt a kind of sleep crawl in that I hadn't known since I was a kid. Not exhaustion, not escape, just real steady rest. Because once you stop chasing fairness, your body figures out how to breathe again. We got married in mid-October. Tessa's blowout happened the following May, complete with drone footage and his and hers cocktails. But ours came first, by design. We pushed our date back 8 months to make room for peace, not production. Found a family-run barn in Vermont with wood beams that creaked in a comforting way and a field out back that smelled like hay and clean rain. 42 guests, no ushers, chairs that wobbled if you sat too hard. Felt like home. Lila wrote her own vows. She stood under the arch we built ourselves and said, I love you because you never treated me like a solution to your problems. You just saw me. I told her I loved her because she never treated me like a burden. Because with her, I was never fine. I was just me. The food was simple, pecan pie and blueberry crumble instead of a wedding cake. The band played Stand By Me and didn't care that half the crowd was off key. It was loud, messy joy. Nobody filmed it. Everyone felt it. Her parents pulled me in for a hug after the ceremony. Her mom called me son, and her dad just clapped me on the back and said, she did good. Not a word about cost, or how we could have made it fancier, or who didn't show up. Just one question from both of them. Are you happy? We left 2 chairs empty in the front row. No cards, no announcement, just space. You can mourn what didn't show up without inviting it back in. The money from my parents, still untouched. Lila and I had made a quiet deal. We wouldn't decide what to do with it until after the vows were said and the cake that wasn't cake was eaten. After the toasts, while the band took a break and guests wandered out to the fire pit, Lila leaned in and squeezed my arm. You still thinking about what to do with it? I have an idea, I said. There's a scholarship fund at the tech school near home, for night students. A lot of them work full-time, same as I did. Tools cost money, so do books. She smiled without hesitation. Let's do the whole thing, all of it. The next morning, we sat on the porch of our rental cabin with bad coffee and good silence and wired the full amount. No fanfare, no plaque. Just a note in the memo field. For the ones who show up even when no one's watching. I didn't text my parents, didn't add it to social. I didn't need the credit. That's the thing about real peace. It doesn't care who sees it. In the weeks that followed, I thought I'd feel a wave of sadness, or anger, or even regret. Something. But nothing came. Just space. Just quiet. The good kind this time. Lila and I took a short trip to Maine before winter, ate chowder on a plastic table near the pier, bought a magnet shaped like a lobster with cartoon eyes because it made us both laugh too hard. On the drive back, somewhere near the border of New Hampshire, she asked me, "Do you miss anything about how things used to be?" I thought for a second. "Yeah, I miss believing people mean what they say." She nodded, not sad, just steady. "Then we'll be the ones who mean what we say." It sounded like a small promise. But in that moment, with both of us in the car and no one else steering, it felt like the whole point. Tessa's wedding went down in May, just like they'd planned. Scottsdale, full sun, curated to the last detail. I didn't go. Wasn't invited either. Didn't matter. I saw the whole thing play out through a cousin's Instagram. Arches of white roses, sparklers during the first dance. A vintage car rented just for the photos. Looked like a luxury brand spring campaign. Someone tagged me in a blurry group shot. I untagged myself. That kind of show wasn't for me. A week after I heard about the speech, Tyler hit the bourbon too hard and grabbed the mic before the DJ cut him off. Said something about grinding through setbacks and protecting what matters. And apparently half the room went silent. One cousin told me people just stared at their plates, pretending to find something in the salad worth analyzing. Mom called me the next day. No message, just a missed call that sat on my screen like a rock I didn't feel like moving. Dad followed up with a text. "It was a beautiful day." I didn't answer. People forget that words land differently when you've had to live in the silence behind them. Later that night, Tessa left a voicemail. I recognized the breath before the first word even hit. She was crying. "I wish you were there. I'm sorry about how things went down. Can we talk?" I listened to it twice, not because I didn't get it the first time, because I wanted to feel sure about what I felt. And what I felt was this. I remembered carrying her boxes to her dorm while Mom snapped photos and Dad made a joke about the smell. Remembered helping her move out again 2 years later when she dropped a minor for the third time and cried like she'd just buried a dream. I remembered being fine every time, just so she could be celebrated. I also remembered the dinner, how she said she didn't know the fun was mine, and maybe she didn't. But even now, part of me thinks she liked not knowing. Lila didn't push. She waited until I put the phone down, then asked, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Nothing." Not out of anger, not revenge, not because I was above it, just because I didn't need anything from her anymore. Not answers, not peace, not some recycled version of closeness. We went for a walk that evening, light breeze, end of spring kind of weather. Up the street, a little boy was trying to ride a bike without training wheels. His dad jogged beside him, arms ready, not touching, just there. "That," I said, pointing. "That's how I want to be, if we ever have kids." Lila smiled. "Me too," she said. Later that night, I pulled up the voicemail again, hovered over the delete button, didn't press it. I archived it instead. Put it somewhere I could find if I ever wanted to, but not somewhere I had to see. We bought the kind of place you drive past without noticing. 3 bedrooms, creaky floors, faded shutters, and a backyard with a maple tree just big enough to shade a hammock. No columns, no solar panels, no status. Exactly us. The day we moved in, the screen door jammed, the faucet leaked, and a family of ants held a meeting in the pantry. I learned how to patch drywall and replace outlets without electrocuting myself. Lila figured out how to kill ants with vinegar and steal wool instead of a flamethrower. We argued over paint colors. She said sage, I said navy. Somehow we landed on yellow. We laughed about it before the argument even finished. That was the rhythm. Disagree, joke, land somewhere better. The neighbors showed up with a tuna noodle casserole and real questions. Where we came from, what we liked to cook, if we planned to join the block party in July. Nobody asked what we did for work or how much the house cost. Felt good to start over in a place where nothing came with a scorecard. A few weeks later, my dad texted out of nowhere. "You left your torquey wrench here," he wrote. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Keep it." He followed with, "Proud of you." No punctuation. Felt like he dropped it on the floor and walked away. Mom sent a Christmas card with a photo of Tessa and Tyler, standing on some beach in coordinated outfits. I left it on the fridge for a week, then slid it into the junk drawer under expired coupons. Lila's parents visited in February. Her dad helped hang curtains. Her mom tasted our chili and got misty-eyed, said it reminded her of her grandmother's recipe. It wasn't about the chili, it was the feeling. When people want the same thing, peace, comfort, quiet joy, you don't have to talk circles around it. I kept my job at the hospital, Monday through Friday, clock in, clock out, sign the manifests, keep the numbers tight. Lila never pressured me to quit. She could have paid for both of us to take a year off. I didn't want that. Work, for me, was part of staying steady. Sundays became our thing. We'd sit on the back steps with mugs of coffee and a list for the hardware store. No big talks, no checking in, just the sound of birds, the occasional bark from next door, and Lila nudging me with her knee when I forgot to flip the laundry. Sometimes I'd think about younger me, the kid with the packed lunch and the chipped bike frame, the one who learned early that asking came with strings. I didn't hate that kid's story, I just didn't want to repeat it. That version of me taught me how to see the quiet ones, how to spot a fake promise before it lands, how to walk out of a room without slamming the door. And if that sounds cold, it's not. It's just space. Space you earn when you stop begging for someone else's approval. One night, Lila and I were sitting on the couch, half watching a documentary. The topic turned to parenting. She turned to me and said, "We're not going to make them be fine." I nodded. "We'll make them feel seen." We pinky swore on it like teenagers, but we meant it like adults. I'm 56 now, and when I think back to that Sunday dinner at 29, it's not the money that still hangs in my chest. It's the sentence. "You've always been fine." That line stuck like a splinter, not because it was cruel, but because it was comfortable for them. It gave them permission to stop checking in, to assume silence meant peace. If you've spent your whole life being the fine one, the steady, quiet, easy one, let me tell you something. I wish someone had told me earlier, needing isn't weakness. It's how you learn who actually shows up. When Lila stood up at that table, it wasn't some power play. She wasn't trying to win. It was love that held its ground. She didn't blow the place up. She handed my parents a deadline and a door. They had the choice to fix it. That was more grace than I ever got growing up. People love to say family is complicated, but it's not really. Strip away the drama, and it's basic. You either keep your word, or you make it right. You either apologize, or you live with the gap you caused. They wired the money on day 17. No message, just digits. We gave it away the next morning to a tech school scholarship fund. Full amount, no strings. That was the closure, if you want to call it that. Turning something selfish into something useful. A promise recycled. Tessa called after the wedding. Then again, I never blocked her. But I didn't pick up either. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because I finally understood that healing doesn't come with a phone call. It comes with space. I didn't slam the door on my family. I just stopped standing in the doorway, waiting for them to see me. If you're sitting outside your folks' house right now, maybe in your car, practicing the thing you've never said aloud, here's my advice. Say it once. Say it calm. Say it clear. And be ready to walk if they still don't hear you. Then go find one person, just one, who treats you like you matter when nobody else is watching. That's enough. Build your life with that. Doesn't have to be a partner. Could be a friend. Could be yourself. And if someday someone says, "You've always been fine," don't get angry, just translate it. What they're really saying is, "We stopped looking." Then do the hardest and most necessary thing I ever did. Start looking at yourself with both eyes open. And keep the promise they never could. Before we wrap, who in your life says you're fine while breaking promises? If you've hype, tap it. Please subscribe and like, then comment below.